Trainers bank charges for the use of the automated teller machine, also known as the ATM, have stirred up heated debate over time, as customers groan over the effect of such charges on cash withdrawals. Now, the complaints have not escaped the attention of the National Assembly, especially the Senate, which recently, after extensive deliberations, ordered the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, to suspend the ATM maintenance charges being deducted from customers by the commercial banks. Prior to 2014, customers were charged 100 naira for transactions on ATM of other banks, but this charge was eventually removed to encourage the use of ATMs. Now, while cash withdrawals at the ATMs of a customer's bank remain free, the existing 65 naira charge on ATM transactions with other banks was reintroduced on September 1, 2014, to the disdain of customers who think the charges over time are quite excessive. Besides the charges for cash withdrawals from other banks' ATM, do the monthly ATM maintenance charges amount to double taxation? We have guests in the studio who will be speaking to the issue. I am Joy Usiago. Welcome to the program Nigeria Today. The program is Nigeria Today, and with me in the studio to discuss the topic of ATM maintenance charges is an entrepreneur, Obinaya Uruakba. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Always my pleasure.
All right. Also in the studio is an economic analyst, Yushao Aliu. Thank you, Aliu, for joining us.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
All right, gentlemen, from an initial 100 naira charge in 2012 to 65 naira in 2014, and then other banks' ATM cash withdrawal charges, would you say that all this put together, can you say it is justified?
Well, permit me to stay in the middle today, discussing the banks and also discussing those of us who are entrepreneurs out there and the rest of us. It was actually 100 naira for a year. But when the central bank came up with another policy, it came down to 65 naira charges per month.
Now, was it because
per transaction? Was
it because they thought about it, or because customers complained?
The complaints have always been there. 65 naira per transaction, and then you still have the monthly maintenance charges that happen every month. Then you also have the SMS charges that you are charged. So let me bring out all the bad news this early, and then we'll begin to discuss all of that. But like I said, I'll try to be in the middle today, in the sense that the banks are there to do business. And if you, it speaks to the challenges we have with infrastructural development as a developing nation. We've had to discuss this on this platform, and we came up with the issue of the cost of acquisition of these machines. We don't produce those machines here. These machines cost millions of dollars, and then you have to position them in different strategic locations. We are not holding brief for banks who ordinarily should do their business plan and know the right place to position these things to attract customers. For instance, you put it in a carry market, the frequency of withdrawals will earn you money, especially if the cards belong to some other banks. However, we also need to look at the other issues. For instance, I've done my research to find out that the banks are complaining that the quality of the cash they get from the regulatory authority, which is the Central Bank of Nigeria, that some of those notes are a bit dirty notes, no longer crispy. So they now set up their machines to dispense maybe 10,000 naira rather than 20,000 naira.
Anyway, we'll come to that. The denominations.
But I was just going to go to that, but because infrastructure...
Just hold on. We'll go to that. Let me hear from Yushao about these charges, and then when you consider cash withdrawals and the charges we get from there, doesn't this amount to double taxation?
It amounts to double taxation, but every penny in a bank has a history of coming from a source, either from direct surpluses from business people or for businesses purposes, including savings. So virtually, before a bank debit a customer under digital economy, the bank must have somebody's resources at their disposal. So what the point I'm trying to raise, each and every customer has paid for the debit card. And if you pay for a debit card, it means is that the production and the services you are going to have is like a phone that you buy. If you are buying a phone, a cellular, you pay, you take it, you make use of it. But in the case of bank, multiple charges coming from different sources, and at the end declaring abnormal profit is not help.
So now, you know, I like this angle you're taking. Take, for instance, I know that we pay 1,000 for every card. So after paying that 1,000 naira, is it justifiable to charge people extra subsequently?
It's not justifiable because you have paid for the service. It's like when, for instance, you paid for a check.
So why are we
when you pay for a checkbook, you collect a checkbook. When you come, you use your check and take your money. So why is it different with a card? So these are tricks of capitalists. They want to make more money, and in trying to make more money, they make abnormal profit. And this abnormal profit, they are eroding the purchasing power of potential customers. Assuming 65 naira is debited per transaction. If you times 65 naira into 10, for instance, you have 650. You know what you can do with 650. So these are some of the issues why we have to, first of all, thanks the Senate for bringing it out loud, because I am happy to mention that the Senate President was a banker. And also he has mentioned categorically that he is the first person to bring ATM machine into Nigeria 25 years ago. So if with that trend, now after 25 years, recently there are other developments in the bank. What we are expecting from the banks is not charges, but other digital services, including video banking with the ATM machine.
All right, let me go quickly to Obinaya. You know, we always say that the media is always at the forefront of setting agenda on various issues and focusing on sectors. You know, this is something we've been talking about on most of our current affairs programs. Now, my question is this. Well, thank God we have seen the decision of the Senate. But again, why will the banks take customers for granted? Is it because consumers hardly hold them accountable?
Yeah, being a customer myself, I don't work for the banks. I've had to query this. I've had to ask why the charges should be that excessive. Let me even give you some information. The central bank would sometimes say that rather than 5 naira per meal, go down to 3 naira per meal. Now, what we have discovered being done by some banks is that if the customers do not be on the lookout, they could continue the charges on 5 naira per meal, which has necessitated some owners of accounts to nominate auditors to go check, and sometimes they found out that within that interregnum, between the time the CBN said stop 5 naira per meal, go down to 3 naira per meal, which finally came down to 1 naira per meal, some of the banks continue charging. And it's just something like he said, a system that is there, a software that is there that continues to charge at 5 naira per meal. For me, that's dishonest, and it's not fair.
But why is the central bank not checking most of these
We've mentioned it before, my sister. We said that you have a banking supervision department in the Central Bank of Nigeria. You have over 23, 24 commercial banks. So
can we refer to them as toothless bulldogs?
Not exactly. I strongly believe that whatever we need to do to strengthen the work of the CBN, do we need to recruit more? Do we need to do more training? Do we need to engage agents or consultants and pay them? Because Nigeria, like he said, is a heavily populated country, cannot be regulated by one institution that has less than a certain number of staff. The whole of the Central Bank of Nigeria, I do not think employs more than 10,000 staff. And then you're going to be supervising banks that one bank alone has over 100 branches spread across the 700, and let's even say that at 60 plus FCT. So let's begin to be realistic.
So are you saying this is too much for a particular section?
It's a little challenging. I strongly would submit, permit me, yes, there's a place of technology which makes things easier, but I can tell you very much that if you look at the quality of training that these banks undergo, and the volume of money they make, they have all the war chests to invest in whatever infrastructure they need, and they're always a step ahead of the regulator. So and I'm going to be blunt to say that.
So how come they're not crying? Apparently they're benefiting from what is going on.
No, I would not be in a hurry to cast aspersions at anybody, but like I said, I will try to be in the middle today. It still comes down to the general infrastructural challenge we have as a nation. It comes down to the cost of doing business in Nigeria. If you invite the banks here, which I will still encourage you to invite one of these days, invite them here.
We try most of the time.
We'll keep trying, and I encourage them to come and speak for themselves. But let me try and hold brief a little bit for them. Being an entrepreneur myself, Okonjo-Iweala came up at some point and said that if you go to some states, you have about 97 classes of taxes. So the banks have all manner of people coming to them to ask for this task force, this one, that, and so on. Who pays it at the end of the day? He said it earlier on. The customer. They push it down to you. Just like if you're selling Ogo, down the road, if the price of some other thing goes up, I increase the price of my Ogo. As simple as that, I suspect that these banks, the cost of doing business, security is an issue, power is an issue. You are living in a country where we still need to query how many megawatts we're actually using. Some of these banks have to do their broadband, and some of these cards you're talking about, you look at them, there is a particular brand name, MasterCard or Verve and so on. None of them is Nigerian. Maybe if you begin to talk about InterSwitch. Now, some of these things you have to pay them. It's like having your internet access. Some of these things you have to keep paying for having continued access every month. So I suspect that down the road, Yachua, myself, yourself, have to pay for all of the subscriptions they have to subscribe to some of these foreign what you call software providers that make these cards operable. All
right, I'd like to hear Yushal's take on this matter of infrastructure challenges.
Cost of doing business.
Can we hang on to that and also look at the cost of doing business? Can we hold on to that to be some of the reasons why we're having these excessive charges?
One business is mentioned. It's just a scenario between investment, operations, and profit. These guys are making profit. Therefore, the challenges of infrastructure is not an obstacle to their operations because annually they declare profit. What matters more is service delivery. Service delivery without cheating. Cheating in economics is fundamental. It's fundamental in the sense that you have to protect each and every customer on what he uses in an economy. Remember, there is competition, and in competition there is game theory. There is a game theory because these people are hunting for A, these guys are hunting for B. These teller machines is purchased by all banks. You give them different brands of name, but you access the same Nigerian currency. Accessing this currency in different machines does not, you have no business with as a consumer. Because that consumers mostly are indifferent. You may choose bank A, I choose bank B, he chooses bank C, but all we are dealing with is the same currency.
And at the end of the day, the consumer bears the brunt.
So, but extortions is what matters. How much? This weekend, last weekend, I was discussing a business. Somebody brought a business of 44 naira profit. When we calculated 44 naira by kilogram, at the end of the day, 5 million naira is produced from that same business. So these guys are producing 65 naira per transaction. Nobody knows the multiple transactions everybody is doing. You buy, you just remove 1,000 out of emergency, they took 65 naira. You remove 10,000, they took 65 naira.
In fact, they've taken about 3 different charges from me today for just one transaction.
But you have right to access your money because you gave them the privilege to use your money. You don't care where they took your money to.
So who is protecting the consumer?
That is why the Consumer Protection Council has to come to protect consumers, and that is why regulatory agency like Central Bank of Nigeria has to come with good policies. But we have to also commend the CBN because they are now responding. We have complained bitterly that the banks has their own problem. The problems of the bank is that in trying to make profit, they underemploy. After underemploying, they overcharge. After overcharging, they don't pay even the taxes collected. We have seen that case where the 15 naira stamp duty that is deducted out of every transaction is somewhere around. So these are fundamental issues that we said that now executive has done their own. The central bank is attempting to correct issues, and also I have to commend the CBN. by penalty of delaying transaction. These are some of the proactive measures that we want the banks to be taking.
All right, we'll come back to the directive from the Senate and what the CBN needs to do after this break. You're watching Nigeria Today, and we're looking at the inconveniences of the ATM maintenance charges, especially for consumers. Let's hear the views of a cross-section of Nigerians on the topic.
It's a fraud. It's a total fraud, a complete fraud on the Nigerians. There is nowhere in the world, apart from Nigeria, where charges for maintenance of ATM is done. What are you maintaining? Is it a machine? What do you maintain? Before you issue the ATM, you paid for it. Are you not aware of that? We paid for ATM before it's issued. So what do you maintain? What are you taking charges for?
The order that the Senate give is right, because the charges that the bank is given, especially to ATM withdrawal, and also they make some charges on ATM maintenance card, which we don't know the reason why they are charging us. So the order that the Senate gives is in good way.
The ATM maintenance by bank is too much, although we are happy that the Senate, they say something about it.
100 naira every month, to me, is still much. I think bank should make it annual charges.
The money that they are taking from us is too much. They keep on collecting the money day in, day out. Before you know it, it becomes another different things. So I think it's a better development for them to eradicate it. It's too much.
All right, Nigerians resident in the Federal Capital Territory bearing their minds there on the topic. We're still in the studio and we'll continue with the conversation. Gentlemen, you listen to the sound bites from Nigerians in the Federal Capital Territory. Let's start with you, Obinaya. What do you make of the things we just heard?
I actually feel for the average Nigerian, being bashed on every front. If you're not dealing with bank charges, you're dealing with water people, you're dealing with charges from everywhere. And then the income is not coming as fast as that. But having said that, I also would want us to pay attention to a couple of things. Like I said, trying to just balance it. It comes down to us being able to also engage with the banks. Then banks and their operators are Nigerians first and foremost. They need to operate patriotically as much as they're making profits.
Now,
it shouldn't be excessive.
Sorry to cut you short. When you talk about engagement, how give us a good example of how to engage?
Yeah, it has to come from, some people say either eat the yam with the palm oil or palm oil with the yam. Either way, the chicken and egg thing comes up. The banks may need to actually sit with the customers to begin to enlighten them on why they actually need to charge. And if they must charge, we need to come to a point where you may need to give some discounts, because they were the ones that encouraged us to do the ATM in the first place. You used to go to some banks and they encouraged you to, rather than coming to the banking hall, you could do your withdrawals from outside. Now that we've obeyed them to begin to do that, so they congest their banking hall and make their operations less cumbersome, they should also come midway with us and begin to also give us some concessions. Like he said, I do not sincerely think banks should be declaring the kinds of profits they declare at the end of the year. It has become like a competition, where you declare those profits so you could win Euro Money Magazine Award or some other awards across the continent. But I would encourage them to understand that down the road, you're going to end up discouraging the CBN's cashless policy, which encourages people to do digital money, like you said, rather than doing cash. Let's do cards and do transfers and so on. If we continue with these charges, people will begin to keep money under their mattresses and begin to walk around. Then robbery will increase and all of that. But I will keep insisting that there may just be a reason why these things are happening. And we need to look at the deep-rooted cause of why charges are. The same way you are complaining about the banks, the same way you complain about some other charges you get in some other places. We need to sit down and have a stakeholders discussion on what it is infrastructural development is. As I just speak, the National Assembly needs this, at the same way they are saying that the ATM charges need to be withdrawn. The National Assembly needs to also tell us where the budget for 2018 is. Have we released the budget? Has it been appropriated by the executive? Where is the place of oversight function? How much oversight function has the National Assembly done on the banking system? Because that also is their work. So that it's not going to be playing to the gallery. This is a good thing they've done, but they need to go the whole way. Sit down with the Central Bank of Nigeria. What is the job description of the Central Bank of Nigeria? Is it being done? Sit down with the Consumer Protection Council. What's their job description? And also sit down with those of you in the media. Where is the place of advocacy? To begin to put them on a hot seat so they do what they're supposed to do.
All right, let me go quickly to Yishao. Let's hear his views. We're focusing on this directive from the Senate. Now, it's a good thing. People are applauding it. But beyond the directive, what do they need to do so they can be seen to be performing their functions accurately, not just paying lip service to the issue?
I think the National Assembly, they are discharging part of their constitutional right to make a decision of that nature. But however, if you look at an economy that is democratic, we don't need, like Mr. Obinna recommended, we don't need bankers to talk to us. Because naturally, a customer, after having himself into a bank, doesn't want much talk. All he needs is, let me have my money. It's because Professor John Robinson described money as money is what money does. And the type of market we are is hit and run economy. It is hit and run because it's digital. So this bank must be digital in the first instance. And the inconveniences they are causing with the charges goes beyond the money. Let me give you a scenario. Somebody that has just 2,300 naira, for instance. Now, he may possibly take only 2,000 and leave the 300 there. And the 300 will be subjected to those type of charges eventually. But the scenario I want to put is a situation where a consumer is trapped and he has 1,050 naira in his account. And if he attempts to take 1,000, the teller machine will not give him, because 15 naira must be added with that 15 naira, so that the 1,000 will be left irrelevant.
So how do we get over this? You know, we're discussing this because we're trying to find a way out and to make the consumer solution happy.
Joy. We have to, anytime, you see, anytime somebody access money in a bank will be joyful, either in the bank or through the ATM. So the best way to do it, at the beginning of taking the card money, build whatever the charges you want to charge subsequently, sum it all and collect it with the card, because the card is going to render services for a particular period of time, possibly 3 years. That is not forever. They keep on changing.
So in a nutshell, what is the way out?
If it is 1,000 naira now, they are charging per card, let it be 1,300. They charge once and leave somebody's money to enjoy his own facility.
That's right. All right, Obinaya, quickly, in a nutshell, your concluding thoughts. I mean, what should be the way out? I mean, it should be done in such a way that the banks are happy and the consumers are happy.
No, the way out is for the banks not to do a one-size-fits-all for every customer. You can see the examples. Somebody has 10,000, you take 65 naira. Somebody has 1,000, you take 65 naira. I know it's already automated. There must be a way to graduate these charges to say sometimes they say 1 naira per meal, meaning that the volume you transact with them is the volume determines the charges they make on you. I believe strongly that this 65 naira is actually a little excessive. I know that they have to deal with all manner of costs with infrastructure, like I keep saying, security, power, different things they need to take care of, even the acquisition of the machine itself. What I see happening here is that they spread this cost so that, unlike what he said, they don't take it once. Because you cannot tell how long the person will keep the account with you. So if you take it once, it may also turn out to be another excessive.
Depends on how much the customer has in the bank.
Excellent. So what I'm saying is, it's a question of looking at it in a balanced way. The banks need to understand that now that the complaints are going, if you want to retain your customer, because the long and short of it is about customer satisfaction and customer service. So it's a question of understanding that these complaints are becoming too high. The day customers find an alternative to you, you're in trouble. And, they also need to understand, like he said, that they took time to try to acquire these customers. Like I will always say, get the hearts of the people before you ask for their hands. Now that you've gotten the people, the best you can do is to keep managing them so you can get more business. And the more business they get, the more profits they declare.
That's right. All right, gentlemen, thank you very much. This is where we wrap up on Nigeria today. But before we go, we want to appreciate Obinanya Oroakba, an entrepreneur and public affairs analyst. Yushao Ali, we want to thank you very much for joining us this evening, and we thank you for your insightful contribution. And that's it on Nigeria Today. On behalf of the crew, I want to thank you very much for watching. Remember, Nigeria Today is on weekdays, same time. So join us tomorrow for another edition. You can also watch any edition online at www.youtube.com/NTA News 24 Hub. I am Joy Usiago. Enjoy the rest of your evening.